Springboks and All Blacks, folks, the greatest rivalry tour is just around the corner. Not one, not two, not three, but four. Four test matches between these historic rivals. 3 matches in South Africa, and then 1 over in the US. It's going to be a massive tour. That's not even including the matches against the Stormers and the Bulls and whatnot in prep for the test matches. It is a full-on old-school tour. New Zealand touring South Africa. Who's the favourites? We'll go through that in a second. But also, what is the kind of most predicted series outcome? Because you've got multiple different options. The Boks could sweep it 4-zip. The All Blacks draw the series 2-2, maybe something else. We'll go through this, and you guys can let us know your thoughts on what chance you're giving the ABs away, and also what you reckon is the most likely series outcome. Can the All Blacks sneak a win there somewhere? Our record over in South Africa in recent years is genuinely not very good. Our last win on South African soil against the Boks, 2022. It's a number of years ago, and in the last 6 matches we have played against the Boks, there's only the 1 win there for the ABs. And that's at Eden Park, which is the fortress. Like, if there was anywhere you're going to get a win from an All Blacks perspective, it's Eden Park. So the Russie has had a pretty good record against the All Blacks. But we've got a new coach. So there's a bit of optimism here in New Zealand about the initial 3 matches. But to say that the Springboks are favourites would be putting it mildly. The Boks are pretty massive favourites of this one. And there's no surprise that not only they're hosting the tour, but Russie is still there since 2018. It's almost a decade in charge of the Boks now after an amazingly successful run. Number 1 team in the world, 2 World Cups in a row. Amazing depth in that squad. Whereas the All Blacks, as I said, have just sacked their coach and brought in a new guy. So it's 2 teams, unfortunately, kind of at very different places. It would have been nice if the All Blacks were a little bit more on the ascendancy to give it a bit more spice. But as it stands, the Boks are massive favourites, and I think undeniably so. I've had a look at the Bookmakers odds, which are, you need to put a degree of caution with Bookmakers odds because the Bookmakers are there for one sole purpose, to make money from you and I having a flutter. So we take the Bookmakers odds and we convert it into a percentage out of 100. That's the kind of implied probability. So take that with a bit of a grain of salt, but I think it kind of passes the vibe check. The Boks as favourites for the series, according to the bookies, 60% favourites. That's paying, like here in New Zealand, to be $1.50. So pretty massive favourites. You might say, surely the Boks are more value than 60%. Surely it's like 70, 75. I think if this tour was a 3-match tour, in which case the draw factor would be minuscule, the Boks would be even bigger favourites than this. But because we do have 4 matches, it just lends itself so much more to a potential draw. The draw actually takes up a pretty substantial chunk, more than a quarter. So 26% chance of the draw. That leaves with the All Blacks as pretty massive underdogs. 14% chance. So that's how the bookies have got it. Admittedly, they're New Zealand bookmakers, but I've been doing these videos for years. There's some variation between bookmakers because they adjust the odds depending on where the money is going. South African punters will put more money on South African teams. New Zealand punters will put money on New Zealand teams, but generally there's much of a muchness. There's only going to be a few percent between them, but that's what the bookmakers have got at the moment. The draw is perhaps the biggest surprise there at 26%. The Boks being massive favourites is no surprise. So what is the most likely series outcome? Interestingly, it's not the Boks sweep, which a few people had been predicting, especially end of last year. The Boks to win the series, but by 3-1, is the most likely result according to the bookies at 31% chance. It's paying $2.50. So pretty solid favourites compared to everything else. But interestingly, the second most likely outcome, according to the bookies, second predicted outcome, it's actually the draw. Ever so slightly ahead of the Boks sweep. So it's kind of like option 1 is there's the series win 3-1, then there's a bit of distance, and then there's 2 very close results, either the series draw or the Boks sweep. That's 2 very different results from a New Zealand perspective. That's a disaster, and that is, hey, it's a moral victory. We'll certainly take, I think if you offered any of the All Blacks guys 2-2, I think we're probably biting your hand off for 2-2. but none of those involve a New Zealand win. Is the New Zealand win the fourth result? No, it's not, because the next, according to the bookies, most likely result is the other. What do we mean by the other? That's essentially if any of those 4 games end in a draw. That'll mean the series ends like, 3-0 or 2-1 or something like that. Could even be 1-1 if there's 2 draws kind of thing. So whatever, any other result, which isn't 4-0, 3-1, 2-all, either way, is the next most likely. The All Blacks to win the series is down at 10%. And the All Blacks to do the unthinkable, the sweep, is at 4%. So the Boks are pretty huge favourites. And I feel like that passes the vibe check, at least with what I've been feeling here in New Zealand. Like, I did a video the other day about the Springboks squad, and there was a little bit of feedback saying, man, some All Blacks pundits and whatnot are writing off the Springboks, and I felt like that is not true. I don't think that's happening in any quarters. I think the most you're getting, at least from the stuff I've seen online, is we're cautiously optimistic about the direction Dave Rennie is taking the squad. The words from Dave Rennie's own mouth was that the Boks are a different beast. And of literally the people I have talked to on the street, because there's a handful of people in my neighborhood who, if I see them, I'll hit them up for a rugby conversation. Hope for a draw is basically the vibe I've been getting. It'd be nice to draw the series. That's as optimistic as I have seen it. So the All Blacks as underdogs, it's not the most common situation, but that's the reality at the moment. The Boks are huge favourites. I feel like sometimes the Boks do better when they are kind of backed into a corner. Anytime the Boks are like underestimated, they tend to thrive a bit more. But not in this case. The Boks are pretty huge favourites. The Boks to win at 3-1 being the most likely outcome. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon this one is going to go? If you're a New Zealand fan, how happy are you with Dave Rennie and what we've been doing? I think he's right that there's reasons to be happy with what they're building. But he's also right that the Boks are a different beast at the moment. If you're a Springboks fan, what is success for you? Was it Robbie Kempson the other day that said he's adjusted his prediction from like 4-0 to maybe 3-1? Yeah, maybe that's both sides being a little bit optimistic about how the All Blacks trend is going at the moment from both the South African and New Zealand point of view. But anyway, fingers crossed it's a cracking series. I would love 2-all. I dread 4-0. 4-0 would be... No one's going to want to sack Dave Rennie for 4-0, but yeah, 4-0 would be tough. Anyway, you guys let us know your thoughts on the series. Most likely outcome. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. We did a cracking video the other day about the Eden Park record, which includes South Africa and their part in that record from an All Blacks perspective. If you haven't seen that, I'll put a card up there. Check it out. I've gone through all the records and who are the opponents the All Blacks faced and what was the strength of the opposition and whatnot. I think it's an interesting watch. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.